How American Families Build Real Success from Nothing to Everything. A story of struggle, hope, and the making of a legacy. Part 1. The Empty House on Maple Street. In the quiet town of Springfield, Ohio, there was a narrow, slightly worn-down house sitting on Maple Street. The paint on the walls had faded over the years. The wooden fence leaned slightly to the left, and the front steps creaked every time someone walked in. But for the Miller family, it wasn't just a house. It was everything they had. Daniel Miller stood outside that house early every morning before sunrise, holding a worn-out thermos of black coffee. He was a 38-year-old former warehouse worker who had been laid off 2 years ago when the factory shut down. Since then, he had been doing odd jobs, roof repairs, deliveries, anything that paid in cash. His wife, Emily Miller, worked part-time at a grocery store in downtown Springfield. She came home every evening with tired eyes, but still managed to smile for their 2 children, Ethan and Lily. Ethan was 14, quiet and observant, always thinking too much for his age. Lily, just 9, still believed her father could fix anything in the world. But Daniel didn't feel like that anymore. He felt like he was failing them. A broken morning. One cold October morning, Emily placed a small envelope on the kitchen table. Daniel already knew what it was before opening it. "We're 2 months behind," she said softly. "If we don't pay by next week, they might start foreclosure." Daniel didn't respond right away. He just stared at the table, not because he didn't care, because he cared too much. "I'll figure it out," he finally said. Emily looked at him. "You always say that," and she wasn't wrong. Ethan's question. That evening, Ethan followed Daniel into the garage. It was half empty except for old tools, a broken bicycle, and boxes they never unpacked after moving in 5 years ago. "Dad," Ethan said, "are we going to lose the house?" Daniel stopped moving. That question hit harder than any bill, any rejection letter, any debt notice. He turned slowly. "No," he said firmly. "We're not losing anything." But Ethan wasn't convinced. Kids notice more than adults think. "You haven't been sleeping," Ethan added. Daniel forced a small smile. "I've been thinking." "About what?" Daniel paused. Then he said something that would change everything. "About building something of our own." The idea that changed everything. That night, after everyone slept, Daniel sat alone in the kitchen with an old laptop that barely worked. The internet connection kept dropping. The lights flickered every time the refrigerator kicked on. He searched one phrase over and over. Small business ideas with no money. Most results felt impossible. Others felt like scams. But one idea stuck in his mind. Mobile car cleaning service. Low startup cost. High demand in suburban areas. Daniel looked outside the window at the quiet street. Most families in Springfield had 2 cars. Many were busy, overworked, and didn't have time for detailing their vehicles. He whispered to himself, "Maybe this is it." But then reality hit him. He had no equipment, no money, no experience, just a broken car in the driveway and a dream that felt too big for someone like him. First step into nothing. The next morning, Daniel borrowed $80 from Emily's savings envelope. Emily didn't argue. She just said, "Make it work." With that money, he bought a bucket, soap, sponges, cheap cleaning cloths, A used vacuum from a pawn shop in Columbus. It wasn't a business yet. It was hope in plastic bags. First customer. Daniel posted a simple, handwritten flyer around the neighborhood. Affordable car cleaning. $15 interior/$25 full wash. Honest work. Springfield area. For 3 days, no one called. On the fourth day, an old man named Robert Hayes from 2 streets over called. "I hear you clean cars," the man said. "Yes, sir. My truck is a mess. If you can make it look decent, I'll pay you." Daniel's hands shook as he packed his supplies. This was it, his first chance. The turning point. Robert's truck wasn't just dirty. It looked abandoned. Years of dust, mud, and neglect covered every surface. Daniel worked for 5 straight hours. Neighbors walked by, watching him kneeling, scrubbing, wiping, and rebuilding that truck piece by piece. He didn't rush. He didn't complain. He just worked. When he finished, the truck didn't look brand new, but it looked loved again. Robert stood silently for a moment. Then he said, "Son, I don't know what you did, but this feels like a different vehicle." He handed Daniel $40 instead of $25. And then something unexpected happened. He added, "I'll tell my friends." The first spark. That night, Daniel came home exhausted, hands cracked from cleaning chemicals. He placed the money on the table. Emily stared at it. $40? She asked. He gave extra, Daniel said quietly. Emily didn't smile immediately. Instead, she looked at him like she hadn't seen him in years. Not a defeated man, but someone standing up again. Ethan peeked from the hallway. "How many cars did you do?" he asked. "Just one." Lily clapped her hands. "So you're rich now?" Daniel laughed for the first time in months. "No," he said, "but I think we started something." End of part 1. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep, not because of stress, but because for the first time in a long time, he had direction. Outside, Springfield was quiet, but inside one small house on Maple Street, something was beginning to rise. From Survival to Legacy. Part 2. When small dreams start getting noticed. Springfield, Ohio slowly changed for the Miller family after that first car wash. Daniel didn't realize it at first, but something had shifted. It wasn't just the money, it was momentum. After Robert Hayes told a few neighbors, Daniel got 3 more calls the next week. Then 6. Then 12. By the second week, Daniel was working from early morning until sunset. Their small driveway became his workshop. Buckets lined the grass. Water ran across the pavement. The smell of soap and determination filled the air. Ethan started helping after school. At first, Daniel refused. "You've got homework," he said. But Ethan insisted. "This is part of homework too. You're building something. I want to learn it." So Daniel taught him how to clean glass without streaks, how to vacuum tight spaces, how to talk to customers politely. Lily became the official water assistant, handing towels and cheering every finished car like it was a championship win. For the first time in years, the house wasn't silent anymore. It was alive. The problem no one talks about. But success doesn't grow in straight lines. It bends, it breaks. One Saturday morning, a black SUV arrived. Expensive, shiny, too clean to even need washing. The man inside stepped out wearing a suit. He looked around Daniel's setup and frowned. "You're the guy charging people for this?" Yes, sir, Daniel replied. The man shook his head. There's a real auto detailing shop downtown, fully licensed, equipment, insurance. You're just doing this in a driveway. Daniel stayed calm. People here can't always afford those prices. The man smirked. Then maybe they shouldn't be getting car washes. And then he left. But the damage stayed behind. That night, Daniel sat quietly at the kitchen table. Emily noticed immediately. Something happened, she said. He nodded. People like that think I'm wasting my time. Emily sat across from him. Are you? Daniel didn't answer right away. Because doubt is heavier than failure. The fire that nearly ended everything. 2 weeks later, disaster came. It wasn't dramatic at first. Just a smell. Then smoke. The old vacuum cleaner Daniel bought from the pawn shop overheated inside the garage. By the time he noticed, flames had already crawled up the side of a storage box. Get the kids out, Daniel shouted. Emily grabbed Lily. Ethan tried to run back inside for something. Ethan, no! Daniel yelled, pulling him back just as a small explosion burst from the burning equipment. Within minutes, the fire department arrived. The fire was contained, but the damage was real. Their tools were gone, their supplies destroyed, and worse, the neighbors complained. Insurance warnings came. A notice arrived from the city. Cease home-based commercial activity pending inspection. Everything Daniel built was gone in one morning. Part 3. The decision that defines a family. For 3 days, Daniel barely spoke. He sat in the backyard staring at the empty space where his work used to be. Ethan tried to help. We can rebuild it, he said. With what money? Daniel replied quietly. Emily was stronger. She always was. One evening, she placed the same envelope from months ago on the table again. Use it, she said. Daniel shook his head. That's for emergencies. This is an emergency, Emily said firmly. Silence filled the room. Then Ethan spoke softly. Dad, when you started this, you said we were building something of our own, not just you, all of us. That line hit harder than anything else. Daniel looked at his family, and for the first time, he saw what he had been missing. This was never just his business. It was their future, rebuilding the right way. Instead of quitting, Daniel made a decision, a bigger one, a harder one. He rented a small garage space on the edge of Springfield. It wasn't fancy. Concrete floors, flickering lights, old metal doors. But it was legal, stable, real. Emily took extra shifts at the grocery store to help cover rent. Ethan designed a simple logo on a school computer. Miller Family Auto Care. Honest work, fair price. Lily drew a picture of their family washing cars under a bright sun. That picture was taped to the garage wall. Their first month was difficult. Only a few customers came, but Daniel didn't stop. He improved everything. Better service, faster cleaning, honest pricing, respect for every customer. Slowly, word spread again, but this time differently, more professionally, more powerfully. The turning point no one expected. One afternoon, a local newspaper reporter came to write about small businesses recovering after economic hardship in Springfield. She chose Daniel's garage as a story. At first, Daniel didn't want attention, but Emily said, people need to see what rebuilding looks like. So he agreed. The article was published. Former warehouse worker builds family-run auto care business from scratch after job loss. Within a week, everything changed. Customers tripled, then doubled again. People came not just for car cleaning, but for the story, for the honesty, for the family behind it. 5 years later, Springfield looked the same on the surface, but the Miller family life had transformed completely. The small garage expanded into a full auto care center. Daniel now had 6 employees, all local workers from the same struggling town he once lived in. Ethan, now 19, studied business at a nearby college while helping manage operations. Lily, now 14, designed their website and handled customer communication. Emily no longer worked late shifts. She managed finances full-time. One evening, Daniel stood outside the expanded building. The sign above read, "Miller Family Auto Care, built from nothing." Ethan walked up beside him. "Did you ever think it would get this big?" he asked. Daniel smiled. "No," he said honestly. "I just didn't want to lose what mattered." Ethan looked at him. What mattered? Daniel glanced at his family inside the building, laughing, working, living. "You did," he said. Final scene, legacy. That night, Daniel gave a short speech at a local community event. Nothing fancy, no big words, just truth. "When I lost my job," he said, "I thought my life was over. But I learned something important." He paused. Success in America doesn't start with money. It starts with not giving up when everything tells you to stop. The audience stayed silent. Then he added, "My family didn't just survive. They built with me. That's the real success." Applause filled the hall. But Daniel wasn't thinking about applause. He was thinking about that broken house on Maple Street and how far they had come from it. Final closing note. And that is the truth behind many American families. Not luck, not shortcuts, but persistence, unity, and belief in something bigger than struggle. If you enjoyed this story, stay connected to this channel for more inspiring journeys like this. Don't forget to subscribe, support, and be part of this growing community of real-life inspiration. Good luck, and keep believing in your own story.